In the spring of 1974, a punishing drought had its grip on the highlands of Shanxi province, China. A group of local farmers, desperate for water, decided to dig a new well. On March 29th, their shovels struck something hard. But it wasn't a rock. It was the silent, staring face of a man made of clay. They had found a single soldier, the first sentinel of a vast subterranean army. An army now estimated to be over 8,000 men strong, complete with horses and chariots, all buried in precise military formation. They had stumbled upon a 2,000-year-old secret, a wonder that would rewrite history. This wasn't just a collection of statues. It was an entire military force, built to conquer the afterlife for one man, China's first emperor, a man of terrifying ambition and an even more terrifying obsession with eternal life. This is the story of why he took an entire army with him to his grave. The boy who would be emperor. To understand the army of the dead, you have to understand the world that created its master. We need to go back to the 3rd century BCE, to a time of chaos and bloodshed known as the Warring States period. For over 200 years, China wasn't one nation. It was 7 rival kingdoms locked in a brutal, endless cycle of war. Into this violent world, a boy named Yingzheng was born in 259 BCE. He was a prince of the Qin state, a kingdom on the western fringe that was hardened by conflict and organized for one purpose: conquest. The Qin followed a philosophy called legalism, a stark worldview that preached absolute obedience, strict laws, and the ruthless use of power. It shaped Yingzheng from his earliest days. His childhood was anything but safe. He spent his early years as a political hostage in a rival state, an experience that likely planted the seeds of paranoia that would haunt him for life. When he finally took the throne of Qin at just 13, he inherited a finely tuned war machine. Guided for a time by powerful regents, the young king was watching, learning, and waiting. Once he came of age, he moved swiftly and brutally. He purged his court of all rivals, including his own mother's lover and the powerful prime minister who had helped him get the throne. With absolute power now his, Yingzheng looked out and saw not 7 states, but one future: his empire. He believed it was his destiny to end the chaos and unite all under heaven. The boy king was ready to unleash the might of the Qin, and China would never be the same. The unifier of all under heaven. With his power at home secure, Yingzheng launched the final devastating campaigns of the Warring States period. One by one, the other 6 kingdoms fell to his disciplined armies. His conquest was methodical and merciless, using espionage, bribery, and overwhelming force. Han, Zhao, Wei, Chu, Yan, and finally Qi, all were extinguished. In 221 BCE, the wars were finally over. At 38 years old, Yingzheng was the undisputed master of the known world. But the title of king just wasn't enough. It was the title of the men he'd just destroyed. He needed something new, something that showed his unprecedented power. So he created it, combining ancient titles to make a new one: Shi Huangdi, the first August emperor. He was now Qin Shi Huang, but conquest was only the beginning. He knew a true empire needed a single identity. So he began a series of radical reforms, enforced with the same ruthless efficiency that won him the war. He abolished the old systems, dividing the empire into 36 territories, governed by officials he appointed himself. He built a network of over 4,000 miles of new imperial highways, not just for trade, but to move his armies quickly to crush any rebellion. He standardized everything. The old currencies were melted down and replaced with a single round coin. Weights and measures were unified. He even standardized the axle widths of carts to fit the ruts of his new roads. Perhaps his greatest legacy was standardizing the written language. While people still spoke different dialects, everyone from a general in the north to a merchant in the south, could now read the same laws and the same history. This single act was crucial to holding China together for the next 2,000 years. To protect it all, he ordered existing walls along the northern border to be connected and reinforced, creating the first version of what we now call the Great Wall. It was a massive project built at a staggering human cost. But for the emperor, the cost never mattered. Only the result, the glory of his dynasty, was important. He had forged a nation from blood and iron, and he intended for it to last 10,000 generations. The obsession with forever. Qin Shi Huang had achieved the impossible. He was a living legend with absolute power. But as he surveyed his empire, a new enemy began to haunt his thoughts: death itself. The man who conquered the world was powerless against his own mortality, and he refused to accept it. His reign became a desperate, all-consuming quest for immortality. He had built an empire for the ages, and he believed he should be there to rule it for all time. This fear was cranked up to 11 by a deep paranoia, fueled by several real assassination attempts. He became secretive, hating even the word death. He built walled corridors connecting his palaces so he could move around unseen by assassins or evil spirits. The emperor's quest for eternal life became state policy. He actually issued a nationwide executive order demanding that his officials find him the elixir of life. We have their awkward written replies, essentially saying, "We haven't found it yet, but we'll keep looking." He turned to alchemists and magicians. They told him of mythical islands in the east where immortals lived. The emperor bought it completely and sent an alchemist named Xu Fu on a massive expedition with hundreds of young men and women to find these islands. They never came back. Legend in Japan says they settled there, too terrified to return to the emperor empty-handed. Ironically, his quest for life likely killed him. His doctors gave him pills they believed held the secret to longevity. They contained mercury. Instead of making him immortal, the mercury slowly poisoned him, ravaging his body and likely deepening his paranoia. As his health failed, his focus shifted. If he couldn't live forever in this world, he'd prepare to rule the next. His afterlife wasn't going to be a peaceful rest. It was going to be a continued reign. He would need his court, his administration, and most importantly, his army. The construction of his tomb, which began when he was just 13, was now kicked into overdrive. He wasn't just building a tomb, he was building a second subterranean empire, with its heart protected by an invincible army made of clay. Forging an army of clay. The scale of the Emperor's afterlife project is hard to wrap your head around. The entire complex sprawls over a staggering 22 square miles, a shadow copy of his imperial capital. Its most incredible feature lay waiting in a series of pits, positioned to defend him from the spirits of the kingdoms he had conquered. This was the Terracotta Army. So far, excavations have revealed about 2,000 of an estimated 8,000 soldiers, organized for battle. They're joined by 130 chariots with 520 horses and another 150 cavalry horses. And archaeologists are sure thousands more are still buried. This wasn't a symbolic guard, it was a full-sized military ready for an eternal war. Creating this army was a marvel of logistics, almost like a supernatural assembly line. The bodies were made in sections from local clay. Legs, torsos, arms, and heads were all created separately, then pieced together and fired in massive kilns. But what's so stunning is the individuality. While they used about 10 basic face molds to start, artisans then added custom details, unique hairstyles, mustaches, beards, and expressions. The result? No two soldiers are exactly alike. They are individual portraits. They vary in height and uniform by rank, kneeling archers, standing infantry, chariot drivers, and towering over them all are the generals, their height signaling their authority. Discoveries are happening all the time, with recent finds of rare, high-ranking commander figures offering new clues into the Qin military hierarchy. These weren't unarmed statues either. They held real, deadly weapons. Tens of thousands of bronze arrowheads, swords and crossbows have been found. Many blades were still shockingly sharp after 2 millennia. For years, people thought this was thanks to an advanced chromium anti-rust coating. But recent studies suggest the chromium was probably just a fluke, a side effect of a lacquer used on the weapon's wooden parts. The real secret to their preservation seems to be the unique soil they were buried in. But maybe the most incredible and tragic fact is that this silent grey army wasn't always this way. When they were first unearthed, the warriors were covered in a dazzling array of bright reds, blues, greens and purples. But this magnificent sight vanished almost instantly. Exposure to the dry air caused the delicate 2,000-year-old paint to flake off in minutes. It's a devastating loss and a reminder that what we see today is just a shadow of its original glory. It's also a key reason why the biggest secret, the Emperor's tomb, remains sealed. The unopened tomb and its lingering secrets. Less than a mile from the army pits lies a massive man-made hill, a pyramid-shaped mound now covered in trees, standing over 240 feet tall. Beneath it is the final resting place of Qin Shi Huang. It's the Emperor's tomb, and in over 200 years, no one has ever opened it. The reasons are a mix of respect and genuine fear. The main concern is preservation. The tragedy of the warriors' lost paint is a stark warning. Opening the tomb with today's technology could instantly destroy priceless treasures, silks, texts, and other fragile artifacts. The Chinese government has said no excavation will happen until they're sure it can be done without destroying what's inside. But there's another, more chilling reason, one that comes from the ancient historian Sima Qian. Writing about a century after the emperor's death, he gave an almost unbelievable description of the tomb. He wrote that it's a map of the empire. The ceiling is the night sky, studded with pearls to represent the stars. The floor is a model of his lands, complete with flowing rivers of liquid mercury, all set to flow mechanically. To guard it all, he wrote that crossbows were rigged to fire automatically at any intruder, and in a final act of brutal secrecy, once the tomb was sealed, the workers and craftsmen who built it were trapped and buried with it, so no one could reveal its secrets. For centuries, this was dismissed as a wild fantasy, but modern science suggests it could be terrifyingly true. Surveys of the tomb mound have found abnormally high concentrations of mercury in the soil, lending powerful support to the historian's tale. The toxic mercury vapor alone is a lethal threat to anyone who enters. So for now, the tomb stays sealed. Ground-penetrating radar has confirmed a huge, complex palace lies beneath the mound, but its contents remain a tantalizing mystery. The first emperor rests undisturbed, surrounded by his treasures, his mercury rivers, and his silent, eternal guardians. The Terracotta Army is more than one of the world's greatest archaeological finds. It's the ultimate monument to the will and the fear of a single human being. An emperor who unified a nation, but who was so terrified of death that he built a supernatural army to fight it for him. The soldiers are the embodiment of his ambition and his paranoia. They stand as a silent testament to a secret he took to his grave, a secret that has been partially unearthed, but whose final chapter remains sealed shut. The emperor's central tomb is still the ultimate mystery. It promises knowledge beyond imagination, but also real dangers. Perhaps one day, technology will let us see inside. But until then, we're left to wonder, what other secrets do you think the Emperor's tomb holds? Let us know in the comments below. And for more journeys into the greatest mysteries of history, make sure you subscribe.